Dawn Foundation Madurai welcomes you all for this lecture series on World Heritage and Culture. Today, the lecture number 26 on the topic Discovery of Indian Arts will be delivered by Professor of Art History and Culture Dr. R. Venkatraman.
Good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Today's lecture, the 25th, if I remember right, 26th, okay, is going to be delivered in honor of and in memory of my good friend, Mr. Thirumaran. Thirumaran was a regular attendant to these lectures right from the beginning with his wife, Dr. Mrs. Thirumaran. Thirumaran has been an excellent artist of very high order, and even in the second lectures, he impressed me very much by his thought-provoking questions as well as very eminent observations about the lectures that time. And there was a vibe between us in the same wavelength. I have been practicing artist also for some time, and Narana passed away suddenly a month ago, and that creates a vacuum in my mind. And today's lecture will be in honor of him. His wife is there. I requested her to bring some of the paintings made by Mr. Chandan. They are all here. Okay, for me, he is very much there here listening to my lecture. That's how I take it. There's emotional attachment. And after starting these series of lectures, I found it's a sort of bond being created among ourselves. We are not very much aware, and the manner the students coming from Dawn Foundation and greeting me, the people coming from abroad and greeting, and eventually a sort of bond, the connect is happening. That's very much essential in modern times. And we are everyone becoming an island, not aware of what's happening in the neighbor's house and all that. That isolation, a sort of insular life that should come to an end. This demise of my friend, Mr. Thirumaran, brought to my mind how much we are creating an unaware sort of bond when it is suddenly snapped. What an amount of disgust it is creating in our mind. Well, I dedicate this lecture to his memory. He is an artist, and how Indian art was discovered. Already we have spoken in 2 or 3 lectures about the history of Indian art, how it evolved right from the time of Indus Valley civilization, let's say around 2500 BCE before Christ, and they were co-evolved with or contemporaneous with the Egyptian and the Sumerian civilization, and they had attained a very high level in art, in stone as well as in bronze. The objects that we could discover from Indus Valley to Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, though very few and far between, they speak volumes about the level of attainment of the people, the creators of that civilization. And subsequently afterwards, there was a very great gap in history of Indian art. Then the second great milestone in Indian art emerges from Ashoka, the great in North India. Again and again, I used to thank the advent of the invasion of Alexander the Great, and it was not a mere adventurous invasion, a military invasion. It was an embracing of 2 great cultures. He thought of spreading the Greek civilization or culture, which he considered is the best according to his point of view, until he saw India. After coming and seeing the culture prevailing here, he thought, there is another alternative culture, as great as Greek culture. This one, only great minds can appreciate best things in others and openly acknowledge and absorb. That's how culture has been developing throughout the world. And after Ashoka, and he starts Ashoka starts, as I have told in the previous lectures, the art of cave temples. And afterwards, the tradition of cave sanctuaries became a fashion among the kings. And it was for a long time, it was monopolized by the Buddhists, the stone cave architecture. And then the Guptas take it over and were adopting it for the Hinduism. And thereafter, the Hindu kings all over India feel it is a sort of a style for them or an achievement. One of the basic achievements expected of an emperor is to create a cave sanctuary, build temples, and many other things. Thus, certain culture on the level of the kings, it's spreading all over. And in Madurai, that cave temple architecture is being found here in the 7th century AD or 8th century. It comes here, and in Anamalai, you can see a cave dedicated to Narasimha, which is in the form of Narasimha. Close by, nearby, you can see one dedicated to Murugan with the Devanai, and then the Thiruparamkundram cave sanctuary. There are two. One is under worship facing Madurai, and another just behind it. Thus, the cave sanctuary tradition spread from Kashmir to Cape Comorin, and it was motivated or kick-started by Ashoka, and thus it became a sort of tradition all over. Then, the structural temple tradition also spreads, and the temples become the repository of culture, whether it is what we call the visual heritage or intangible heritage, like spreading Ramayana, Mahabharata, Periya Puranam, the lectures, and all these things, happen in the temple, and the temple becomes a sort of vibrant with the local culture. It mixes the North Indian and South Indian traditions. And in Tamil Nadu, the Periya Puranam of Chegidar as well as Ramayana of Kambana Tatlar, though they have adopted certain elements from North, these books become the expression of the long, age-old Tamil tradition in the literature, in their culture, and all that. Then the British people came and they protected. Our people, they have created art, but they were not able to appreciate art. They didn't know their value. If a statue is under worship, all the people throng there, go round and worship. If the worship stops, nobody turns to that side. It is neglected. Thus, archaeologists have to dig out many of the sculptures. Even yesterday, they have found one Buddha sculpture in Andhra Pradesh, belonging to the Vajrayana Buddhism. Okay, it's a very interesting one. And the place name is Vaikunta Puram. That's very important. Because recent researchers will show how Saivism and Vaishnavism and the Shaktism, the three major cultic religions in India, started from Indus Valley civilization with a lot of fluctuations, afterwards began to spread all over India. And in this, the interaction with the West, the Greek, as well as the interaction locally, intramural, between the Buddhists and the Hindus, elevated the tradition of Saivism and Buddhism very much. Vaishnavism. And the Buddhists were great meditators. They used to invent, they come out with something new. And all of them were immediately accepted by the Saivites and the Vaishnavites overnight. And they rejected the concept of God. These two cults, are the three cults. They had the God as the center of the cosmos. Immediately, all the philosophical ideas generated by them were integrated with God, and thus we have enormous literature. This literature, its greatness was understood by the West because of their translation by certain genius. One among them was Aurangzeb's elder brother, that's Shah Jahan of Taj Mahal's fame. His youngest son, the most handsome fellow according to the chroniclers of those days, very handsome, very outgoing, mingling with people, very gregarious, very scholarly. Yet above all, he was sadistic by himself. For him, he saw truth in all religions. It was he who mastered the language of Persian and then Sanskrit. Darashuko. I mean, thank you for the name. Darashuko, his name was Darashuko, he is a professor. The professors immediately jump to find out the gap between the them. Okay, thank you, sir. I spoke for many words I poured out. One word they carried in the DUC, that is professor. Well, and this Darashuko translated the entire Upanishads into Persian language in poetry. And that caught the attention of the Westerners, and that was translated into Latin, and from Latin it was translated to French, German and English language, and they came to know there was a great stir, a revolution in the thinking of the people, and they admired the souls of India, and a new genre of poets came into being. They are called the Transcendentalists. Am I right? Well, and among them, what's his name? Thoreau, Emerson, and many. And thus, India came to be known by the West through this translation. They admired, not only they admired, its impact was very much felt in their poetry, and it went to the higher level. But on the other hand, the Indian art did not spread that much. I am making a comparison between the India has contributed so many things in the field of thought. The field of thought, they have contributed quite a lot, enormously. Vedanta, Siddhanta, this and that, so much. And they were all, their impact is found in the literature and art. The literature was an excellent carrier of the real mind of the people abroad, whereas the art failed to do that because they were not able to see the art, the manner in which it has been seen. That is the difficulty. Well, that is, today's lecture will be about how the Westerners discovered, because in the beginning, their concept about Indian art was, in the case of literature, Darashuko, and through him, it was appreciated by all of them. In the case of art, and from the beginning, a sort of aversion for the Indian art. This aversion, in course of time, some of the Westerners came here, the archaeologists dug out certain things and presented papers and evoked the curiosity. What was initially an aversion was turned into a sort of curiosity, an evolution. And this is, after reading, I find this is an evolution. Then from curiosity, they began to understand the meaning. What is said in poetry, the transcendentalists, the same ideas have been visually conveyed. Verbal communication they were able to appreciate. The visual communication, when it comes, it took some time for them to appreciate that. When once they understood, they started appreciating. This is the level of what we call evolution, the stages of evolution. And again, I will say, from aversion to curiosity to understand to appreciation. These are the 4 stages of evolution. How it happened, that is going to be the thrust of that lecture today. I have given the whole thing in a nutshell. Now, East and West met and grew. This is my word. Because now they say East and West shall never meet in office. So much have been written and misquoted and all that. Whatever may that be. Now East and West, many travelers came here, and among the travelers, Marco Polo. We are going to see, he came in the 12th, 13th century. He saw the sculptures here. He was an Italian born in Venice. He was a merchant. Actually, the Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare, many of you may have heard. Okay, he had this man in his mind, this Merchant of Venice. He went to China, Central Asia, and was a friend of Kublai Khan. He introduced Christianity there. Okay, and they were able to appreciate Christian values and all that. And on his way back home, he stayed in a place called in Tamil Nadu, a place called the Korkai. On the port of the Korkai, saw Madurai and heard quite a lot about Madurai, the ruler and all that. When he reached back home, he had amassed a lot of wealth, lot of gold and jewels, etc. And there, at that time, there was a competition between two states. One was Venice, another was Genoa. In this battle, he caught up, and the Genoans imprisoned him. And from the Genoa prison, he had to violate at the time. He had a jail mate. To him, he began to narrate his experiences because he had left home at the age of 14 or so, and now he is around 60. He was dictating, he was telling him, and the man who listened, that is the Western mind. A lot of people, I say boring. They will ignore. For them, yeah, that is what we have to learn from the West. If West has something to learn from the East, East has quite a lot to learn from the West. To observe, immediately he recorded, and that was a sort of jail diary, and that became his book. Travels of Marco Polo became one of the classic at that time. Among the what do you call it, travel literature, it is considered to be the foremost. That's why Marco Polo. And then there were certain Indologists, among them Sir William Jones. He is considered the father of Indian, what do you call, culture. Okay. The father of Indology. We call him as the father of Indology. Though we are here, we have many fathers from our home. Intellectual fathers. Okay. Biological father is what we want here. But we have intellectual fathers all over. And this Sir William Jones, next to, and I am a great admirer of Alexander the Great, Sir William Jones, and Ananda Kumarasamy, and then Grammarish. Finally, we are going to come. This Ananda Kumarasamy, we will soon see what he was and what the contribution he has made. Today, as we remember Tirunaranan, we have to remember Ananda Kumarasamy also. I hold both of them on the same level. Grammarish was a lady, and she popularized, went into the depth of the meaning of the significant symbolism of Indian art, and this is what we are going to see. Then archaeologists, then connoisseurs, becoming experts. This James Ferguson was a merchant from England, London, came to Calcutta, lived there, but his hobby was to see architecture. He started as a hobby, studied. He's an amateur, what do you call it, lover of architecture. He studied the architecture of Greece, architecture of Rome. They are of very high order. Then he saw the Indian architecture. He didn't look at them derisively. He saw meaning in that because already he has seen those two architecture of Greece and Rome, and it was not an object. The object conveying some meaning. Whenever you go to the meaning, you can see the meaning everywhere, enhancing, going deeper and deeper. And it was he, this James Ferguson, he saw, drew the pictures of many of the cave temples and Indian architecture, North Indian, South Indian, Kanchipuram, and Madurai. All these things he has drawn, and he gives its philosophical meaning behind them, which we do not know. And afterwards, they discovered some of the Sanskrit words called the what do you call it? Agamas. The Agamas say the same thing. What he imagined was not a mere meaningless imagination. That has been very specifically said by the Agamas also. And he is, I would say, the father of Indian knowledge of Indian architecture. Then Rabindranath Tagore, we are going to see, is the nephew of Rabindranath Tagore, and then B.B. Havel. All these names we are going to see now next. However, in all my lectures, I am another great admirer of Al-Biruni. He was a right hand of Muhammad of Ghazni, who invaded India 17 times, plundered enormous wealth, built astronomical observatories and all that. He was a great fellow. That Muhammad of Ghazni, he was a Persian, but spent most of his life in Ghazni, and his patron was Muhammad of Ghazni. Muhammad of Ghazni is right. Muhammad of Ghazni has lived a very frugal life, very straightforward fellow. Now, personally, they admire him. But in our history, we see only one thing. And he is an invader, destroyer. Which king is not a destroyer? Every king he builds quite a lot, destroys a few. Both of them is a part of their game. And that's what he did. But this fellow, this Albany, got his permission and stayed in Benares, mastered Indian languages, and has come out with a book called the India. Okay. Now we are going to see. He is a Persian, spent part of his time in life in Ghazni, well versed in this is what we have to see. The width of the mind, the more you study, broader becomes your mind. He was a master in physics of those days. Physics, mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, history, geography, and many more. In all of them, he had a very fine grip. And whatever he wrote in Persian language. And then, he was very conversant with his pure mother tongue Persian. Since he was a Muslim, he was a master of Arabic. After coming to India, he studied Sanskrit. With a view to study astronomy, philosophy, and mathematics, he studied in Hebrew, Greek, and to understand, appreciate all religions, he studied Hebrew. And he, in 1017, he traveled to India, wrote Tariq al-Hind, is the name of the book written by him, after exploring the philosophy, religion, sciences of the Hindus. But he doesn't say much about art. The only thing mention he makes about, and it is a what you call encyclopedic in his range. Encyclopedic in range and very deep. Dispassionately he looks at everything and immediately makes a comparison between what prevails in their country and what prevails among the Hindus. He says Hindus are superior to us. Our artisans cannot do that. Our poets have not reached this level. So every time he is making a comparison between his native country, his Islam, his culture, his civilization, and Indian civilization, often he is very spontaneously giving, not to please the Indians. He knew that Indians are not going to read them. Until they were translated in the 19th century by the British, no Hindu knew that there was one Al-Biruni and he had written a book like that. Well, he is an impartial writer, founder of Indology, and the other man is called the father of Indology, that James William James. He is a pioneer in the study of comparative religion. He compares all the religions and comes to the conclusion, in different lands, in different languages, in the name of different gods, all of them speak the same truth. The truth is one. God is one. You are giving various names and afterwards you are quarreling. But if you delve into it, the common fact. It is the common fact. And he was here. Thus he paved laid a strong foundation for comparative religion. He admires the Hindus construct ponds for ablution. We take ablutions, every temple will have a pond nearby. Around the pond you have a flight of steps and all that. Even in the beginning of the 11th century, he has said, the Hindus construct ponds for ablution with steps and terraces around them, with massive stones. In this, they have attained a high degree of art, which our people, Muslims, always used to say, compare. Our people see and wonder, which our people see and wonder. And in the next paragraph, he say how deficient our people are. They are divided, our people live in them. This frankness, something which is called for very much in modern scholars. Okay, next one. Well, then comes Marco Polo. He was, at the age of 17, he left for Asia, and from the prison of Genoa, he taken his adventures to his helmet, and published as the Travels of Marco Polo. It's the most famous travel book in history. He introduced Asia, especially India, to the European world. He inspired Columbus and many other adventurers and travels afterwards. Therefore, Marco Polo is a landmark in the history, the cultural history of the world. He wrote that Indian make monsters and worship them. This is the one word which is very relevant for our lecture today. Okay. And the subsequent missionaries, they called them, Hindus, they will worshippers. I have asked this question, that they are wrong or right? It's up to us to think, contemplate and come to understand. Well, now, what is monster? The word monster has a Greek origin, where in their art also they have shown certain monster. A monster is a creature which is unnatural. You may have a human body and a non-human head, animal head or a bird. Or a bird's body with an human head. Not only that, unnaturally they may have number of arms and number of heads. They are all called monsters. They are anti-mankind. They are terrible. That's all. And you might have heard one, Minotaur. If you have read the mythology of the Greeks, you might have come across with there was one Theseus. That Theseus goes and kills the Minotaur. In one of our earlier lectures, we have shown the picture also. That Minotaur used to eat men folk, men and women. He was fond of eating them. And they used to give human sacrifices for him. He is one of the very famous monster in their culture. When they see similar things in India, they thought these are also monsters. For example, Brahma with the 4 heads, it's a monster. Murugan with the 6 heads and 12 arms, monster. They are all worshipping one. And this idea began to spread there. Oh, the Hindus, the Indians are monster worshippers. But they didn't use the word devil. When the Christian fathers came, monster has no cosmic association. It is a sort of what we call aberration in nature, natural aberration. But the Christian fathers who came to India, they said, it is devil. The Hindus are devil worshippers. Some devils have 6 heads. They call him Muruga. Some have 4 heads. They call Brahma, and they are called, his sons are Brahmanas, devils. Probably that is right. Sorry. Okay. Well, subsequently they said, now, because they saw the form and came to the conclusion, didn't go to the meaning behind it. What is it that we are communicating thereby? That we must know. So, today we see that like that. Who did it? Asia did it. That's what for? 2 legs. And when this man, what you call, Churchill said, we for victory. We for Vakatama. Okay. And when Spartacus entered into the, what you call, the inn to drink that whiskey, he said, that's 5 bottles of whiskey. For him, whenever Spartacus shows that, immediately they used to, because he is a very, very, very powerful fellow. He was very much feared by the Greeks. He used to offer. Therefore, the symbol is the same. Meaning differs, understand? Similarly, the form with multi-headed, multi-armed, the form is the same. What's the meaning they give? What's the meaning we give? That is very important. That was taken up as a challenge later in that next one. In that, this is the route of travels of Marco Polo. From Venice, he went this way, and through Karakoram Pass, he goes here. This is Central Asia, Mongolia, and there he was became a friend of Kublai Khan. He speaks quite a lot about, and Kublai Khan listens to them, and he wants to meet with the Christian fathers. He says, "You go back to your country, bring me Bible." He was so receptive. He wanted to read Bible and the Kublai Khan and all. And then, to a great extent, he has seen the broad-mindedness of the Asians. And he goes back by sea And here in Korkai, it is some 30 miles away from south of the place where I was born and brought up. And that Korkai, he remains there, and it tells quite a lot about the sense of justice of the kings of Madurai, the Pandyan kings. One minute, I will describe how he has spoken about the king of Madurai. This is a place very much known for the pearl fishery. We used to say Muthu Chalama. Once in 12 years they take the pearls. Pearls of very high order. I mean, there are nearly 20 places all over the world where pearls are available. Among them, the pearls from this Pack Strait here are supposed to be the best in the world. And that the time when Marco Polo had anchored his ship here, that pearl fishing was going on. He was an actual witness. At the time, one day he sees a white horse on which a dark man seated with a white turban and a necklace of pearls. So there are only three things are white there: the horse, the turban, and the pearl necklace. The man seated on this very dark but very handsome with a big mustache and all that. Okay, Pandyan probably. Was Pandyan, the ruler. When he was there, some Arabs, one of the Arabs there was a time when Arabs were dealing in purchase of this and they were lending money. They had lent some money to the king's officers. What happened? Suddenly an Arab came, took a stick, put a round around the king, and he said, Anaite. This is a Tamil word. Okay, I swore. The king becomes terrified. He said, what's the matter? That is a calling for justice. The Tamil people here at that time, they're very, very sensitive to justice, sense of justice. And he said, what's the matter? The ministers come and inquire him. And he said, year before last, I lent so much of money and it has not been returned to me in spite of my repeated request. The king immediate orders, give that money together with an interest. As per this calculation, it was given. Then he comes, removes it, and the king gets down, shakes his hand with him, and he embraces, telling, you have saved me from a great sin. You have saved me from a great sin. Marco Polo says, even 100 people cannot oppose that man. He will see them, they have become part of the dust. He will kill him, smash them. But this man shows, because they have given that much of respect to justice, sense of justice was so sensitive to that. This is what he has recorded. So many things he has recorded in favor, but only one thing about the art, he says, they are monster worshippers. Okay, let us forgive. He might not have meant anything very adverse, as we think. Okay, next one. Fortunately, from the West came another gentleman. He is the father of Indology, Sir William Jones, a man whom I love and revere very much. And he founded Asiatic Society in 1784 to discover. Because discover, the meaning is covered. Discovery means you have to open the meaning of the history, art, sciences, literature of Asia. He didn't confine to India. He saw India as a part of the bigger thing called the Asia. There are a number of different languages and races, but the mentality is the same. And then Jones identified Sandragotas and as Chandragupta, and he was that becomes a sheet anchor for Indian chronology. So Indian history, today we are able to find out the historical, chronology, because of his, what is his most important thing, he started in 1780 a journal called the Asiatic Researchers, where he wanted the British scholars, British officers to become scholars and read, go to the villages, interact with people, collect information from them, publish in the form of a paper. And thus he laid a very strong foundation for the researchers into the meaning with the proper methodology to go into the, because if a same project is taken by 5 different fellows, the answer must be the same, provided the methodology is correct. And that is how he was a very young man, He was himself, when he came to India, he was a master of German language, English, Germany, and the two classical languages, Latin and Greek, and Persia too. After coming to India, he was a judge. He heard in the course of arguments the judges quoting certain Manu Dharma and all that in Sanskrit. He was able to find the meaning of it. Very simply. Then within a few months he mastered that language and he wanted the whole literature of India to be translated into English so that it spreads all over the world. Thus he laid a very strong foundation. We were isolated, we had our own thoughts written in our own languages. The doors were open for the entire world for this man, thereby he has served simultaneously to the nation India as well as the world at large. The next one. Well, now, some 25 years after this man, Sir William Jones, had started his Asiatic Society, every officer, whether military officer or civil officer from Britain, and they had developed a curiosity to know about. This is a country which has a lot of wealth, hidden wealth, that has to be brought. Everyone thought it was his responsibility. One day, you know what it is? Today, Ajanta Caves is a great, what it called, tourist attraction. In India, the greatest attraction is number one, Taj Mahal, number two is Ajanta. Well, this Ajanta is full of caves. This was once upon a time covered with a lot of what you call verdure, the forest covered with that. And one day, a young man went for hunting. He's an officer in the military of Madras at that time, today called the German. And he went there and chasing, for tiger hunting. He found a tiger, he chased it ran. This fellow chased it till the end and it entered into a cave which is numbered as cave number 10 today. Okay, now next one. Yeah. Discovery of Ajanta Caves, chance and studies. It was by chance he got it. Ajanta Caves date back from, they were, a few caves belong to the 2nd century BC and up to 650 AD, over a period of 850 years, the number of caves have been, today there are 28 caves of different, almost all of them are Buddhist caves. And Yuan Sang, in the 7th century records that Dinnaga, the famous Buddhist logician, lived here in Ajanta. And he enriched the Indian logic. This logic became the foundation for the entire Vedanta system and the subsequently of Saiva Siddhanta system also. This Dinnaga. Okay. And for centuries these caves became lairs to wild animals. What right we have to call them as wild animals? Somehow humans have their own language. In the human language, lion and tiger, they are wild animals, as though they are very tamed. Well, on 28th of April 1819, one John Smith, a Madras British cavalry officer, while hunting tigers, accidentally discovered the entrance to a cave which is branded as cave number 10 by the archaeologists today. And in 1822, some 3 years afterwards, William Erskine, a Scottish Orientalist, here I am introducing the word Orientalist. Since the days of Jones, Sir William Jones, many of the British officers and the French people, they took interest in the study of Oriental. The French people did quite a lot. The Dutch people have done quite a lot in Indonesia and other places. They discovered the entire Asia and they taught to the owners, this is your property. At a time when I was thinking I am a poor fellow having nothing to fall back upon, somebody comes and tells, this is your grandfather's property, it is here. This is your father part the legacy. Our legacy was made to know, it was very broad and deep, but we were totally unaware like a natural. Somebody had to come. That owners fell upon the shoulders of the Westerners. They did it in an impeccable manner. That's why in Amavasya, we are doing Tarpanam for our forefathers. The first we have to do to these fellows. Only then to our parents. That's what I do. Well, yes, King, Scottish Orientalists read a paper on Ajanta in the Bombay Literary Society. Immediately, there sprang number of literary society in every city. Calcutta was the starting kick-started. William Jones kick-started in Calcutta. Then it spread to Bombay. Then it came to Madras, Chennai, and in North India, Kashmir. And everywhere there was literary societies. Anything new being discovered in one end, Bombay, immediately it had its echo in Madras, and they made further study. That's how there was a great competition. And in the 1848, the Royal Asiatic Society established the Bombay Cave Temple Commission to clear, tidy, and record the rock cut sites. They say it was accidentally discovered, they didn't ignore. The Westerners, while ruling their country, used to have to learn from them. They took, considered the well-being of the people of the country. At the same time, the legacy of the country has also to be recorded. Not only mere recording, but also they have to be conserved, cleared, made tidy, and record them. Then, in 1861, Ajanta became the nucleus of the new archaeological survey of India. Because of that, archaeology survey of India came into being. This accidental discovery, and a man who went there for hunting became a part of Indian history today. At that time, he didn't think about it. The man as well as the tiger, both of them have become part of history. Okay, well, that is it. Then next one. Yes, this is Ajanta. This is a river, Vaghera. This is called the Vaghera River. This is the horseshoe pattern hill range where archaeologists have numbered from this side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 28th one. Among them, now you can see they have been shown this way. Everything is a square. Anything is a square. I have to introduce two words to you. One is Vihar, another is Chaitya. Vihar is a word which is a monastery where the Buddhist monks live. And the Vihar becomes a Bihar, the name of a state. Bihar. Bihar is what we call the local way of Va becomes the Ba in Bengal and other places. When I was in Calcutta for a year, all my friends used to call me Venkatram Ji. My name is Venkatram. Ba doesn't come to them. So then Venkatram became Venkatram Ji. Okay. Then I became bankrupt. Bankrupt Ram, that's a later part. Well, now anything square is a vihar, monastery for them to stay with a number of cells, small cells for each Buddhist monk. And anything which has a horseshoe back like that, axial back, obsidian. This is what we call chaitya, or place of meditation. They don't worship, they meditate. And now you can see number 19. Number 10. 9 and 10. This is your portion. This is number 9, 10, and then 19. Here you get the 26. These are all the 4 beautiful ones. Among them, 9 and 10 belong to the BC, 2nd century BC. They belong to the 5th century AD. All of them are well, most beautifully maintained, repaired, discovered by the Britishers, though accidentally, even they took over them, adopted them, and what is it that they did next? That they do next? We are going to proceed in the next chapter. Please, next one. Yeah. In the meanwhile, Sir Alexander Cunningham, he was an engineer in Calcutta, and he developed a sort of fascination for Buddhism. An accidental meeting with what we call James Princeton made him fall in love with archaeology. He was an engineer, but was very much involved in archaeology, and he excavated Saranath, made careful drawings of this country. Since he was an engineer, his drawings are today so accurate like that they are photographic copy. We are putting the juxtaposing a photographic copy and his drawing. The drawings are more beautiful. Okay. And in 1851 he excavated Sanchi. wrote the history of Buddhism based on architectural evidences. He was the founder, chief of the Archaeological Survey of India. And he was made a knight, Sir Alexander Cunningham, commander of the Order of the Indian Empire. He had number of books he has written. Only a sample I have given. Here I have chosen these things. When the British came to India, they found thousands of books on medicine. Some of the medicines they tried with a tragic end. Okay. And there are thousands of books on astronomy, mathematics, everything. Two things were conspicuous by their absence were, one is the history of the country, and another their geography. Our forefathers knew much about the dimensions of the heaven, the length and breadth, but not about Africa, not about the other countries nearby. So this deficiency today we have in camera we can think about it. Well, he first wrote the ancient geography of India. He read the Mahabharata, Puranas and all that, and based upon that, the route of Kannaya also was written by us later. We took the cue from them. Ancient geography of India, corpus inscription of Indikaram. Indian inscription, major inscriptions were discovered and published by them with annotations. The stupa of Barhut, and where we find lot of excellent earliest Buddhist sculptures where Buddha was not shown in the human form. He will be shown making use of certain symbols only. The symbol may be either of, what do you call, like a pair of slippers that denotes Buddha, presence of Buddha. In the early art of Buddhism, Buddha was never shown by means of in the human form at all. It is in the Mahayana only. In the Theravada Buddhism, they use the 5 symbols. Either an elephant cup, the calf, elephant calf. Elephant calf denotes the birth of or the presence of Buddha as a child. Later, Hindus accepted it as prayer. Will be shocked. Many things will be shocked. There is culture shock. No. Then, because very fondly, Buddha as a child, they didn't give importance to that elephant. They neglected. We adopted. In our Vedas, we had Indra, a very great exalted king of the heaven. But later Brahmins rejected him as one, a womanizer. But the Buddhists took him as the greatest disciple of Buddha. Whatever we rejected, they adopted. Whatever they rejected, we adopted. They rejected the player and we adopted as the fond child. Understand? There is a pattern in them. Then the stupa of Barhut sheds a lot of light on the various yahas. Well, comparison means saddle will be there, the rain will be there, and then somebody will be holding an umbrella, but none will be on the back of the cart. That was become a venerable heart. What is that empty space between the umbrella and the saddle? That empty space denotes Buddha. It is called the great departure. He left his child and home and every pleasure of the world, went to the forest for meditating, coming out with, he was awakened, I am the Buddha. He enlightened. His contribution to Indian philosophy and Indian what you call mysticism is quite enormous. All the later things, owe quite a lot to him. But today in India, in all these people who have borrowed quite a lot of ideas from him, they have rejected him like a devil. Buddha will be quoted, misquoted, or quoted for wrong purposes. They made use of his logic. They made use of his ethics. And in Indian history, this is a very, very chapter. You have to bear with it. What to do? They have done it. As the West discovered the Indian art, in one of my lectures, I am going to speak about the discovery of Buddha. I was telling him in the day before yesterday, the discovery of real Buddha, because our literature, the Hindu literature, projects him as someone, what you call, disrupting the concentration of the mind and leading him astray from God. Understand? Therefore, we know Buddha the wrong way. The right way of Buddha was presented by them, in which, in the discovery of that Buddha, what an amount of travel has to be undertaken by one fellow called Burgess. Fortunately, that name came to my memory. That Burgess was suffering from some ailment. He couldn't walk. But with that, he covered more than 6,000 miles. Not only in India, Calcutta, and then to Burma, then to Tibet, ultimately goes to Buddha Gaya, where he sees a statue being worshipped by the local people, calling him Shiva. He asked them to remove the garlands. See, there was a Buddha. He said, "Is Buddha?" Oh, no. Buddha is a devil. He is our Shiva. He said, he has to say, this is not Shiva, sir, this is Buddha. Now Buddha Gaya is associated with Buddha. Understand? Thus, in the intermediate, ancient time, we were very wise, our forefathers. Today, we are trying to become wise. In between the middle age, we were not at all wise. We were fallen into some darkness, self-created darkness. Understand? This is to put in a nutshell the Indian history. Okay, those who created an excellent civilization became totally blind and unaware of that in the medieval period. The modern time, they are trying to recapitulate what the ancients did. In the proper perspective, you are trying. In this process, we owe quite a lot to the Westerners. What is the profit they have to stand? They don't stand to gain anything thereby. It is a sort of intellectual pleasure. That is what they did. And you know, the book of Indian eras. Do you know? Today we are following the Christian era. And some people don't want to call it Christian era. Alright, let us call it common era. The word Christian, immediately sends a shockwaves. It is a common era. But India had no era whatsoever and India is a state. They asked our people, do you have any era? No. Then, today we are quoting the Shaka era. 78 AD is the first era of the Shaka era. Okay? The Shaka era was not made by the Indians. But there are some rulers of the Indo-Greeks or the Scythians who ruled over Afghanistan and Indus Valley, those people have given. Thereafter, our Brahmins, very wise fellows, sat down, made a calculation, made an era called the Kali era, which is 3101. From that it starts. And today I can show it. You see, one of the most ancient eras in the world is our Kali era. We Hindus have it. This is an invention in the 5th century AD by Balfour Marvel. Do you follow what I say? Or have I made it clear? Certain tricks we can play. That's what we have done. Thereby we wanted to wash up the ignorance of us. Next one. Then comes James Ferguson, about whom I told. He is a businessman from London. There was in Calcutta. He studied the architecture all over the world. And then he brought about a book called The True Principles of Beauty in Art. What is beauty? It's a great question. Even Aristotle had to crack his brain. The question, he said there are two things. What is truth? That is a philosophical question. What is beauty? If you ask my mother, for her I am very beautiful. Will anybody who vote for that? Nobody. Even my wife will not vote for that. I am so holy to holy.
We don't vote.
Out of mercy. After listening to Buddha, everybody becomes a Buddha. Compassion. On compassionate grounds. Well, now, True Principles of Beauty in Art, he brought, and then a most thoughtful metaphysical study. And a temple is a physical form. Meta means beyond. Metaphysical means going beyond the physical meaning. Because everything has a meaning in it. Okay, that is what we have to search for. Find it out in the right manner. had a great interest in Indian historical architecture of the ancient period. And mostly the existing architecture in India, then and even now, for your information, they were all religious architecture. The temples were intact. There. I mean, today, do you know, before the medieval period, none of the ancient palaces exist today. Any palace you have anywhere in India, they are all of post-Islamic, including the Nile Palace here. And therefore, architecture means it is only religious architecture. We made a thorough study of them, published many books like The Rock Cut Temple of India. Because, as I told you earlier, did I tell you there are 1,200 cave temples in India? Among them, 900 belong to the Buddhists. They are very beautiful. We the Hindus are late entries into the entrance into the field of cave making from Gupta onwards. And in Madurai, fortunately, around 5 or 6 beautiful cave temples. You have to see them. You should not miss it. Its importance you have to know. Okay. Well, the history of Indian and Eastern architecture is a magnum opus by this man. And he has also written a book called The Tree and the Serpent Worship in India, because the Westerners thought for them serpent is associated with the devil. Because in the guise of a serpent, he came and induced Adam and Eve to eat the fruit of knowledge, which God had prevented. That is a taboo. Therefore, even now is a snake in the grass. It is hidden here and there. Snake is a symbol for them. You see, snake does not know its meaning. A snake is a snake. A male snake is a husband and a female snake is a wife. That's all. Temporary marriages they will have. That's all. Otherwise, they don't have any inner meaning for them. You man attribute meaning to them. You call him devil. It never knew. If you contemplate, it is not a greater devil than man. For me, the best devil in the world is the human beings. Snake will come only secondary. Well, in India, its meaning, metaphysical meaning, symbol of fertility. Those who want children, they go. It is a symbol of fertility and a symbol of cosmic time. In India, in the Western country, time has a period of origin and it has an end. Number one, when God said, let there be light, many things came into being of which time is one. Before that, there was no time. You have to visualize a timeless time. God creates a time. Then it goes in a straight line, and when in the last day of that judgment, everything comes to a close, including the time. Therefore, in the Western concept, time has a beginning, origin, beginning, end. Its movement is in a straight line. In India, quite the reverse. The time has neither an origin nor an end. It is a spiraling, cyclic time going again. So, there are two totally different perceptions. Understand? All these things, this man brought to the notice of the people. They are not worshipping devil in the form of serpent. The meaning of the serpent. Every village has a tree, a sacred tree. And this worship and the significance behind it all brought this merchant. Many merchants have made greater contribution to our culture than professors of colleges or universities. I will have you in my mind. And the engineers are also. Then the next one. Well, James Ferguson, he went to see Canary Cave. Today the Canary Cave has been restored by the Britishers, and he made a drawing of the whole thing, making use of a camera lucida in those days. And this is different from the camera which we are using is called the camera obscura. The camera obscura is a later invention. During his time, there was only camera lucida. There is nothing but just opposite a prism and a mirror. And with the prism and the mirror, if you project a figure, the figure's outline alone will come, details will not come. Understand? And if a prism with the, and there is a method of it, by which all the people, the outline can be drawn, And then next, he handed over to one Dibin. He filled up the gap and drew the pictures, and that's how it came into being. So James Ferguson, the merchant from London, who was in Calcutta, he visited almost all the caves, drew them, and they are a record of the condition in which they were then. To those who see them today, what was it then like, and what is it like today? That difference you can see. That's a great contribution they have made. For us, everything is ephemeral. But the Indians, well, why should we record them? They didn't write the history of man or the history of the king. Today is the king, tomorrow he will die. Why should we bother about him? Okay. Thus we neglect, ignore them. Next one. Next one. Yes. This is Ajanta Chaitya, cave number 10, into which the tiger went. Cave number 10, into which the tiger had gone. There was a lot of rubbles. James Ferguson made the rubbles to be removed, and the broken pillars were all there. He sat there and drew them. This is a drawing by James Ferguson. Now, I will put in just a position. Next one, sir. The same cave today is like that. Now you see, the earlier pillars are there with paintings on. If you go to Ajanta, there will be some pillars exactly the same. Exactly. But the difference, there they carry the paintings of Ohio. Today, whatever they have done, they have not meddled with it. They didn't try to apply any painting here. Understand? That is the historical way of conservation. The conservation is a highly scientific technique that they adopted. Today, if you go there, you cannot believe that once upon a time it was in trouble. The pavement were restored as it is. This is the contribution they made, and in which Alexander Cunningham and others, and the credit goes to Alexander Cunningham. He did all these things, and he trained the Indians. He employed, if only he wanted, he might have brought many people from London and given the employment. No, because he thought probably one day all these, your culture you have to take over and maintain. And then they trained them. Next one, another piece. You see, this has been, all these pillars are lost when he grew. You see the dilapidated condition in which they are there, and now they have been restored. Today, if you go there, this cave is very much, cave 19 is very much there, and in a very beautiful order. If anyone says they have been restored, you will not believe unless you have this figure by your side. That is why I say, not only they discovered, but they handed over the mutilated thing. A child lost, they discovered the child, they restored the child. It is mutilated, they restore them, the child hanging, handed over to the mother. The mother will be doubly pleased for the restoration of the child, or restoration of its head. This is the amount of what we call indebtedness we must cultivate in our mind for foreigners. Well, next one. Yeah, these are all some of the pillars restored. These are restored by up. Now here, next one I am going to see. Here, this is the Chaitya window. This Chaitya window, like a horse's shoe, becomes a very sacred component in Indian architecture. Symbolism of sacrality, because inside the cave, the light and air used to come only through that. Therefore, it became Mahanasika. Nasika means our nostril. This is called the Mahanasika. In all the Hindu temples, the Mahanasika became an indispensable, unavoidable component. And it is a borrowal from this. But this looks like a half circle. Actually, it is not a half circle, more than that. Yeah, we have taken, if this is a photograph, it creates a sort of optic illusion in which it appears like a half circle. Actually, next one, Ferguson's drawing, you see, more than an half. This is half circle. It is going by. Now, you must have a third eye to see. Imagine for some time. This is the head of the Buddha, the 2 ears, reflect on his head. Are you able to see the Buddha? Are you able to see the Buddha? And the cavity, Shunya. What is ultimate reality? He said Shunya. How will you draw the Shunya? Only the outline. Everything is a Shunya. The Shunya brings light. Understand? And not only that, the earliest, the Hindu temple, it is something like a Hindu seated yogi. I think I have drawn that once upon. Will you please bear with me when I draw a picture? See? The earliest temple, structural temple was like this, a simple one, okay, in which you will have a linga. Inside you have a linga. This is the simplest form. Then this entire lecture goes on increasing into 2 tier, 3 tier, 4 tier, and ultimately you can have number of tiers like that, and a pyramidal structure, but the base is the same. Now, what we have to juxtapose, see, now let me make a slight change. What do you see here? Okay. Some of the people are awake still. Okay, Buddha is awakened. No. The word Buddha means awakened. Now and then we do it. Well, now, next one. Yes, he was a member of the Royal Asiatic Society, Major Robert Gill. Well, Ferguson restored the architectural point of it. But Ajanta caves are not mere architecture. It contains lot of paintings. Today, it's known more for their painting rather than for it. And the paintings were restored by one fellow. He is a member of the Royal Asiatic Society. His name is Robert Gill. And in spite of his ill health, he came here, stayed for a number of days, sat in front of them, and began to draw them. Next picture you see. He is tired. He is seated. He brought a camera with him. His assistant has taken a picture of that man. After drawing, he is very tired and seated. For whom he did it? He has done it for us. Now next one. Yeah, this is Gill. Mr. Gill, seated in front, being assisted by our people, and these drawings he began to restore. And this restoration of Ajanta drawing created a sort of awareness among the contemporary Indian artists, especially the name we are going to see, Abhinendranath Tagore. All these things paved the way for an awakening for the nationalism. And Rabindranath Tagore, after seeing the translations of our ancient epics into English, began to come out with a lot of poems. And his nephew, Abhinendranath Tagore, he had these Ajanta murals as the model for Indian art. And they not only discovered all these things, they discovered the miniature painting of the Mughals. One day I will give a lecture on the Mughal miniature painting. And the contribution made by the Akbar, actually they should not patronize, the Muslims should not patronize our art. But he was in Persia for some time. He had restored, he had commissioned many artists to draw the pictures of Mahabharata. He was fond of Krishna Leela. All of them were drawn. See, what a mighty people. Whenever you go beyond a border, all of us are creating a shell around it and living like a snail with it. Break the shell. See beyond. You grow. That is what we have to learn. Understand? Now he is drawing them all. Next one, sir. Okay. Now this is a professor. Like me and he, they are professors. The professors, for holidays we go to Ooty. Kodaikanal. Enjoy. This man was a mathematician from Scotland. He is a professor of mathematics in Dowden College in Calcutta. During vacations, he visited the cave temples near Bombay. Was working in the easternmost part of India. Went to the westernmost part of India to see the caves, and he made a survey of them. Wrote about number of books among them. And the cave temples. He visited Elephanta and Canary. Both of them provoked his curiosity. This professor of mathematics, with mathematical precision, has brought about a book called collaborated with James Ferguson in writing The Cave Temples of India. This book by now and the Buddhist art in India and Indian Western architecture. Even after his retirement, this professor was working. I drew inspiration from this man. For a professor, there is no retirement. Understand? They say, I am not retired. The university says I am retired, but I don't acknowledge. Actually, I am working 3 times more than when I was in service. Okay. And then after retirement, he read editions, Buddhist art in India, Indian and Eastern architecture. He was publishing like that. This man, a professor of mathematics, was invited to be the Surveyor General of Archaeological Survey of India after Alexander Cunningham. Because Alexander Cunningham was a mighty personality. Who is there to step into his shoes? That was the problem at that time. Then all of them unanimously thought, this mathematics professor is fit for that. I want all the professors to close the eyes and what I am fit for. You are fit for only for a pension. On compassionate ground, you are getting pension. You have to go beyond pension. Well, that's right. Next one. Well, this fellow, Sir John Marshall, the next director of archaeology in 1902, he was identified in the appointed by Lord Curzon, a great mighty mind of that time. Was most misunderstood by the people and wrongly projected by our nationalists as anti-India. This man slept only for 4 hours in India. Only 4 hours, rest of the period. How to improve this country? The PWD was his brainchild. Nearly 24 new departments he made and made all of them work like devils. And within 5 years, brought India to a very great level. The one error he committed was, Lord Curzon, I am talking about that. Curzon divided Bengal into East Bengal and West Bengal. Now the nationalist historians say, oh, it is divide and rule. Muslims and Hindus are divided by him. I say it was administrative purpose he did it. Muslims and Hindus are never united. There is no need for him to drive a wedge. This is all passing on the buck like anything. This is escapism on our part. Neither the Hindu mind nor the Muslim mind in India is pure. You are not able to see beyond the border to see the best in others. As a Hindu, I have failed. As a Muslim, he has failed. Both of us are at the loggerheads. You are like dogs fighting and throwing blame on Curzon. That's why I say, study history with your third eye. Delve into the meaning, the intention. Lord Curzon's intention was supreme. Afterwards, India made a long strides. Very quickly came forward and willy-nilly he sowed the seed for nationalism also. Therefore, when Mahatma Gandhi and one of his letters chided the British as barbaric in their attitude, no less a person than Rabindranath Tagore, who was almost, he used to see beyond the borders. He asked Mahatma Gandhi to withdraw his statement. Had the British not come to India, had not the West, it's what you call it, a renaissance. All new thinking, the renaissance. It is not the medieval West that came here. The renaissance and enlightenment, the age of enlightenment, 18th century. All of them were imported overnight here. And as a result of which, we were awakened. We were identified, this is your property. This is your greatness. And that we have to be. Therefore, many of the historians of India don't like me. And that is my greatness. If all the people vote for me, I will think there is something wrong in me. They want me to dance either to do tune of this fellow or the tune of that fellow. I have my own tune, which is linked with the truth. Truth is my tune. I will not dance to anybody's tune. Neither nationalist historians nor imperial historians. No. I go by media. Well, that's by the way this man began to excavate Mohenjo-daro Harappa because already he had undergone a great training under Sarada Yuans. He had excavated and brought to light Cretan excavation and thereby showed to the world that a Greek civilization has a father in Cretan civilization, which is a small island. This is a very great discovery for historians. For us, the greatness of Greece, its philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, their art and architecture, we admire. But where did they borrow from? What is that inspired by them? The Cretan civil excavation is one of the fascinating, one of the lectures already I have made. The Cretan excavation was one of the earliest lectures for us. How that okay? And having had his training under not as a person then Sarada Yuan, he came here, dug out and brought to light unimaginable. Nobody dreamt that there is going to be a civilization buried under the top of the earth, going back to the age of 2500 BC. And that was Mohenjo-daro. And he created a museum in backside of museum. And now that is being demolished, smashed by the Musalmans. Understand? That's it. A few of his books, The Bog Caves, Mohenjo-daro and Indus Valley Civilization, The Monument of Samchi, number of books. I have given a few books of his. Every fellow has come out with lot of field work based upon that book. Every book is equal to one Ramayana. You have only one Ramayana, one Mahabharata. These fellows have made hundreds of Ramayana, hundreds of. In one of my lectures, I had spoken way back in a college where I was asked to fight to the flag. They thought I was a youth professor. They had. After asking the cover, I said no, India had produced only one Mahatma, whom you call Gandhi. From Britain had come hundreds of Mahatmas. Today we have to think them also with gratitude. Thereafter, all the colleges start inviting me. I am happy they are also. They are happy, I am the happiest. I don't want people to listen to me. Because you will not, I say you have to attain the maturity. Maturity. That is what is very much lacking in our people. Every time I am hurting, my intention is not to get hurt. If you are getting hurt, you are not ready to digest the truth. Truth is not in our favor. You see, the moment we acknowledge that, we emerge as great. Understand? Well, next one. Then comes E.B. Hamel. He was a professor, he was a principal of Madras School of Art, and later he became the principal of Government School of Art. He comes from a family of artists, and he was an ideologue and art historian. With Rabindranath Tagore, he said, Indian art has its own beauty. Because there are two types of art. One is the realism, and another is idealism. In art, there are only two divisions. The Western art is mostly realism. In Indian art, it is idealism. Okay, this idealist art, he was in favor of. With Rabindranath Tagore, he created a new school, wrote a number of books on Indian art and architecture, and E.B. Hamel from there is one who opened our eyes to reality. Next one. Then comes Abanindranath Tagore. I told you, all of us know Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore loved him very much. This fellow was a great fan of his uncle. His uncle. Rabindranath Tagore, his poetry and all that. He has drawn his. He introduced a new style of art. He founded the influential Bengal School of Art. That school of art influenced the Madras School of Art. We are going to come to that later. And modernized the Mughal and Rajput styles to counter the Western model. In Western model, outline is not very important. Light and shade is very important. Here, in Indian art, outline will be there, light and shade will not be there. It will be very flat. Okay, and he emphasized not the material but the spiritual value. Every piece of art represents a spiritual value, and had many remarkable students like Nandalal Bose, A.K. Halder. I am admirer of this Nandalal Bose's picture. Yeah, you may have seen some picture by Nandalal Bose without knowing that it is from his pen. Correct. We are going to see that. This is Abanindranath Tagore. He laid with E.B. Haber, a school, Bengal School of Art. It was very influential one. Next one. Yes, this is Rabindranath Tagore's portrait by his nephew. Rabindranath Tagore, when he was a young man, he was very much loved by the people, not only for his poetry, his oration, and he was a drama writer, he himself played. No more. His speeches were like chiseled nose, excellent forehead, the angularity between the forehead and the chin, everything. With the beard augmented the beauty instead of hiding. Yeah. Now, this is a picture drawn by him in the Western style they have drawn. Then the same fellow, the poet in his 30s, the artist was also in his 20s. Now here, the poet has Baul singer. Who is a Baul? Baul is a mystic poet. And they are coming like beggars in Bengal. You can see many of them. They renounce home, go take begging as their profession, with mind always linked to the divine. And in them, many Muslims are there, many Hindus are there. Hindus transcend Hinduism and Muslims transcend Islam. And for them, God is one, full of love and compassion. In Tamil Nadu also, God's great virtue is His mercy, Arul. This Arul, it becomes the grace of God, becomes the central theme. And this man, this great poet, who was admired most, and all of you know that for his Gitanjali, he got his Nobel Prize, he is a Nobel laureate. And this man never gave a post like that. He has said that my poem, if it is appealing to you, or I derive the source of inspiration by the Baul beggars singers. In Calcutta, I had to meet a few Baul singers. I couldn't understand the language, but the spirit of it somehow, I have it in my background. I was able to. And they don't bother. They put the begging bubble. Go on singing, and then take the bubble. Don't see whether it is still empty or that or you have to find. But man is nothing. The giver is the God. Oh, God has still kept it empty. Very good God. He goes to the next place. That is the total renunciation. That renunciation he got. He drew this picture and showed it. Oh, I would like to be like this, he said that. Understand? He is in ecstasy. He goes in ecstasy, tuned with the divine, and pours his song. That is what he has done. Next one. This is a student, Nandalal Bose, Abanindranath. And he was influenced very much by Ajanta mural, and he painted famous scenes from Indian mythology and the village life. The mythology of India is loaded with a lot of meaning. They are not historical facts. They are go beyond history, meta history, beyond history. And he especially in 1976 declared his paintings as art treasures in ASI for their aesthetic value. Now his portrait of Gandhi is Dandi mark in black and white, in linocut print, became very famous. In 1930s, Mahatma Gandhi was undertaking, what do you call it, that Dandi, Sarth Yatra. At that time, this young fellow drew him next to our university. That is it. You know, simple lines, very effective, the dynamism behind it. And immediately, by this picture, this man was transported to the level of the great Christian saints. The Christian saints will having one mind, he hooked in the divine, but service to mankind is service to God. That's a great lesson which you can Christianity brought to India. We owe a lot, quite a lot to this Christian. Even Islam is secondary in that. Service to mankind is a service to divine. This man was like that. I was inspired by the Bible, especially that the Sermon on the Mount, the last words, 7 words on the cross, all these things. It was multifaceted. On the one side, he is inspired by Gita. On the other side, Bible. On the other side, Quran. If there is one universal man spiritually, it is this man. And this picture became very popular. This was drawn in 12th of March 1930. 12th of April 1930, Bapuji. At the time it was called Bapuji. And this is another picture by the same fellow, Nandalal Bose, Shiva with Sati on her. You know, Sati was his first wife. She commits suicide and the dead body is there. He doesn't cast eyes upon any other lady. And she is nothing but the personification of his mercy. Bereft of that mercy, he becomes mad and dances madly after the loss of his wife. For him, everything is lost. Today, if the wife is down, there is a proverb. That is a Puma. Where are we? Where are we? Indian language will be a battle because it is Indian mind. It is ideal. Then she is born again as Parvati. Understand? And he gives a part of his body. They are equal. So equality of woman, it has been an ideal. It didn't trickle to practicality. Well, these are all the type of pictures he drew. Mostly concentrating on that. For him, the flesh which drew all the great divines drew the picture of this man and thereby elevated him to the divine level. Next one. Well, the same fellow, Nandalal Bose, the countryside attracted him. Anything he saw in the countryside was very beautiful for him. Now, like our Madhuri, this is one thing in Bengal. This is a music singer there. Next one. Well, then comes Ananda Kumaraswamy. It's a fresh whiff of breeze in Indian culture. His father was, Muthu Kumaraswamy. Son Muthu Kumaraswamy was a great Tamil scholar, philosopher of Sri Lanka's law. And he married a British woman from Scotland. She was the inherited from Kent, Kentish. So this fellow was named as Ananda. It's the same fellow, one fellow I love most. Therefore, I have seen many pictures of the same man. As a young boy, slightly mature, more mature, the most on par with Tagore. What was Tagore in poetry? This Ananda Kumaraswamy is in the fifth. And what is his range of range? Multi-languages, like algorithm, number of languages. All the philosophies, from Plato to Plotinus, Aristotle, all these. Saint Augustine, we are going to see the range he has studied. Originally, he had his degree in geology. Next one, sir. And whenever we see that Nataraja picture, this Kumaraswamy projected the meaning of Nataraja to the Western world. Now, born in Colombo, the Sarmuthu Kumaraswamy, Tamil philosopher, and his English wife Elizabeth B.B. At the age of 2, Ananda lost his father and spent his childhood in England, and fortunately. And in London, he studied in Wycliffe College, got a degree in geology and botany from the University of College, London. Then Ananda married Ethel, married Patrick, an English photographer. Together, they made field work. Ananda's field work study in Ceylonese mineralogy earned him a DSc, Doctorate of Science. He was made the founder director of Geological Survey of India. I mean, Ceylon, Geological Survey. They identified, at that time Britishers were the rulers, they identified the dedication of this man, the depth of his knowledge and all that. Next one. Now he is, while in Ceylon, he collaborated with his wife, the photographer, wife, Elizabeth on the medieval Sinhalese art, because that lady has an eye for art. This man has an eye for the stones, geology. And there are men who are inspired by the wives and become great. He wrote the text and she provided the photographs. Thus they brought about, they divorced in 1913. By 1906, Ananda had made in his mission to educate, made it his mission to educate the West about the Indian art. He wrote the main difficulty at that time. Many archaeologists were dabbling with art. They were telling it has 4 arms, it has 3 eyes, it has protruding teeth, this and that. But they didn't go. It is an explanation of the physical form. They didn't go to the meaning of it. So he said, the main difficulty is that Indian art has been studied so far only by the archaeologists. But artists are the best qualified judges. Qualified judges of the significance art. That's why they have taken up one of the artists now. These pictures have been brought. He met many artists in London with photos of Indian art and influenced him. Jacob Epstein and Eric Gill, 2 of the famous artists of England, London, they fell in love with his theories and adopted him. Eric Gill even proclaimed, Ananda Kumaraswamy is my guru. He has opened my eyes. Now, what the Indian art was initially looked at with derisiveness, insultingly, then they evoked a curiosity, began to understand, they began to appreciate. All these levels we can see evolving. Now, in 1970, he became the first keeper of Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And what is important, he studied deeply Sanskrit, Pali literature, mastered Western religious works, wrote many books on metaphysics and symbolism and art, profusely quoting Plato, Plotinus, Clement, Philo, Saint Augustine. I mean, I studied the City of God by Saint Augustine, the book I like very much. Thomas Aquinas, Shankara, the Advaita philosopher of India, Eckhart, the German philosopher, admirer of Shankara himself. All these he has studied and influenced. And then Jacob Epstein, he was inspired by Ananda Kumaraswamy. Next one. This man is also, he proudly called Prince of Eridian as a disciple of Ananda Kumaraswamy. This is Mother Mary and the Christ, drawn after the Indian model. This was very much criticized by the British people, but sometime later it became a acknowledged as a masterpiece. Understand? That's how we have to. Well, next one. Well, Kumaraswamy, he had written a number of books, Vishwakarma, Indian Indonesia, Mirror of Gesture, about the dance. Okay, Christian and Oriental philosophy of art, means and Hinduism, Buddhism, perceptions of the Vedas, number of books, so many books he has written. We have given only a few. Next one. Then comes our Stella Kramaric. She is born in age 29 in Austria. Stella was trained as a ballet dancer. Later, around 12, she came across accidentally the Bhagavad Gita. She says, after reading that, a girl of 12 said, I was so impressed. It took my breath away. She found what she wanted to be in her life. The vocation is not a dance, it is something different. And she thought the field of her research is not West, it is India. She comes to India, she studied Sanskrit, Indian art and philosophy, earned a doctorate from the University of Vienna in 1919, and then went to Oxford where she delivered a series of 3 lectures. Among the audience, one fellow was none but Rabindranath Tagore. He intently listened and said, "This much I didn't know about my country." You will say, acknowledge. He is considered as Gurudev. He knows everything about India, they thought. But that man rose and said, "I didn't know that. You have opened my eyes." And he invited her. At that time, he had already got his Nobel Prize, and he has established his Vishwabharati University. He welcomed her, invited her to be a professor there. He had lectures in Oxford. He invited her, join as a teacher in Vishwabharati. And very soon, Calcutta identified her. For 2 years or 3 years, she was there. The 3rd year, Calcutta University appointed as Professor of Indian Art at the University of Calcutta, where she taught until 1950. In the meanwhile, number of books. And in 1929, she had married a Hungarian economist. That man, after the partition of India into India and Pakistan, he preferred to stay in Karachi. He loved Pakistan more than India. Probably, generally, men do not like what the woman likes, his wife likes. Okay, the counterbalance happens everywhere. Well, 1929 she married, and that fellow wanted to go and stay in Karachi, where he was a short day. After this, she permanently moved to the United States. That's a country which welcomed the great minds. Whatever be the language they speak, whatever be the religion they belong to, if they are intellectuals, only the quest for truth is the motto, then America is the land for them. And that's how Oppenheimer from Germany went there. That's how many people, why for that matter, that great physicist, Dr. Albert Einstein. So it became, to put it in a nutshell, United States became a haven for intellectuals engrossed in the quest of truth. And she went there and became a professor. And she became, Stella was professor of South Indian art, the University of Pennsylvania, and simultaneously she was the curator of art in Philadelphia Museum of Art. In 1981, she organized a large-scale exhibition titled The Manifestation of Shiva. And she became a Saivite. She was born a Christian, became a Hindu. She was in Orissa. She had 2 of the books are magnum opus. I mean, 2 volumes, or a set of book called The Hindu Temples. It is even today considered by art historians as a Bible for them. Such a, what you call, in-depth. And Shiva was made very popular all over the world. One by Ananda Kumaraswamy, by his exposition of that number of lectures there, we covered with one book called The Dance of Shiva. The Dance of Shiva. Okay, and this lady, again, the Shiva temples, the components, their meaning, she has brought up. And Government of India awarded her the Padma Bhushan in India. Worthy people were given such awards in those days. Okay. Now, famous ones. Early Buddhist sculpture in 1990, that was her doctoral thesis. Early Buddhist sculpture. Every Hindu house must have at least one book by the sister. At least one book. Whether you read it or not, your grandchildren will read it. Today, we have to buy some books. By these people, I am producing the great minds. And whenever you are in the company of books, you are never alone, because you are in the company of great minds of the past. And the number of principles of Indian art, Indian sculpture, the survey of painting, so many books. The Hindu temple was lauded by Ananda Kumaraswamy, who was his guru like. She held Ananda Kumaraswamy as the guru. The guru, after reading that book, oh, I am fascinated. The book is magnificent. One word is enough for that lady. Okay. Recently she passed away. She's a great personality. Great loss to the intellectual world. Next one. Well, now Madras School of Art. Now, all the while I have been telling about what happened in the West, what the Westerners did in North India. Why don't you say anything about Tamil Nadu? You are always ignoring our Tamil Nadu. Maybe a complaint. And in Government College of Fine Arts in Polo, Higher Chennai, now government, founded in 1850 by one British surgeon called Alexander Hunter. How many of us who visit Madras quite often, now I have to visit Chennai, okay, visited this place? It is a temple. It is a temple of culture. Devi Prasad Rai Chaudhary was its first Indian principal. Before that, only Britishers were principal. Havel was the earlier principal. Afterwards, Rai Chaudhary himself was a student of Abanindranath Tagore. Then, and born in an aristocratic family, Rai Chaudhary's student and in art. Very important. Okay, he's a student of Bhagavat Prasad. From him I learned art. I had drawn a few pictures like that, and thereby I saw it even in the dark. Day and night I used to draw pictures, portraits and all that. Then I thought concentrate on teaching, and this was relegated to the background. Chaudhary was a painter, sculptor, musician, writer, wrestler, administrator, jack of all things. Born in an aristocratic family, he was. And this man, next, yeah. Have you seen, what is it? Where is it? So many of you can show me your hand. Have you seen this? Okay, you are right, thank. And yeah, this is the culture of the labor, okay, in Madras Beach. This was done by Rai Chaudhary. Next one, see? Yes. Triumph of Labor, Marina Beach, Chennai, by Devi Prasad Rai Chaudhary. My guru's guru is a great sculptor in bronze. This has attracted the attention of all the great artists as well as labor leaders. Russian artists, they appreciated that. Not only that, he made, for all of them, Gandhi became a demigod, a living god. Next one. This is Devi Prasad Rai Chaudhary. Ground focus. I searched for his picture. All the other guys were available. This guy was not at all available. Until I struggled, prayed to God and found his picture. He never posted for pictures at all. He was so humble a man. His production is, if you happen to go to Madras Museum, there is a section where his sculptures and paintings have been shown over a period of half a century. Enormous paintings and sculptures he has made. Not only that, he has inspired a number of artists in Tamil Nadu. Well, one day I will speak about the artists of Tamil Nadu inspired by Devi Prasad. One lecture. This is one, Gandhiji's Dandi March. That becomes a famous theme for the artist. Already we saw another artist had drawn him in picture. This is dynamism. All the other people are following him. This is now in the Sardar Patel March, New Delhi. Understand? See the bony man full of bones, lean and lanky, half-clad fakir. Churchill called him half-clad fakir. This fakir frightened the entire world by his what you call ahimsa. Most powerful than all your atom bombs. It can bring atom bomb can only destroy. He brings about a lot of change in the world. That is how. And next one. Yeah. This is Gandhiji at Marina Beach, Chennai. When this was installed, I still remember around 1952 or so it was installed. It was declared open by Kamaraj with them chief minister. There's a lot of you and cry. Oh, it looks like a monkey. Remove it. That was the hue and cry raised all over Tamil Nadu. And there were Pattimantram like things. It looks like a monkey. This picture now. the best picture by the, this is by the Eastern, the Hindu picture. I mean, they don't know how to see that, which is the angle from which it has been taken. I say, whenever you are seeing what do you call architecture, you have to take the diagonal from this art. You have to take architecture. Okay, you have a technical term for that. Now, when you see this picture, next one, sir, it's the silver. You see the dynamism. Inward is full of peace, outward full of dynamism. Two contradictory things is reconciled in that man, very firm, and he was established so firmly by Bible and Bhagavad Gita. Later he studied Tirukural, and in many of the autobiographies, he used to write the Quran and sign in Tamil language. There is no barrier whatsoever. Such a man. Then Kamaraj himself became flabbergasted. Yeah, all the people are telling. Then he consulted Western and said, it's a beautiful piece of art. That you cannot make a better statue of Gandhiji than this. He brings the entire spirit of that man into it. Ignore these fellows. Those who are making hue and cry, they are planning to plant their own statues. Understand what I mean? That is India. That is our Tamil Nadu. Well, now, the Gandhiji in Marina Beach, right, Chaudhary, that dynamism, you see, that a Garuda is hovering there. This was by a Westerner. This is the angle. Here, if you project, open, declared open by K capital, that's all. No prefix, no suffix. Okay. Later, he was called a Gandhara. We never admitted that. Well, next one. Yes, this is here. Leaving behind, this man is on the Marina Beach, sand. Therefore, I have written, leaving behind indelible imprints on the sands of time in Marina. Let them be imprinted in our hearts too. The indelible imprints of this man must be imprinted in our hearts. We need not go to rishis of yore, the sages of the past. There was a sage very much nearby, and the life he led, his life is his message. Next one.
So that's how we are having this image in front of us.
Yeah, we have it. Good. Thank you. That's all.